Hello everyone, so this is my word a day series where I actually trace the etymology of a word. As a person, I've always been interested in where do words come from. I remember in my linguistics class, one of my favorite tasks was morphology. So, tracing it down and cutting it, and then, taking it to the short root form. I mean, I used to enjoy it so much. So I decided that the coming year and even now I'm going to do that. I'm going to trace a different kind of words because it's fun. At least for me it's fun. I don't know about the rest of the people out there. So it's fun. So I'm going to trace different kinds of words, their roots, their usage, and see how interestingly it has been developed and how it has changed, because it's pretty interesting how words change and how the usages of the words change. So today, the word that I've chosen is one of my favorite words, and I was a bit shocked when I was reading, a bit shocked when I was reading into it and reading about it, and trying to find like where does it come from, because although I had a clue, like I had a hint of where it comes from, but I still was a bit shocked. So the word of the day is I think obviously you'll be able to, yeah, not understand because it's mirror, but I'll, in a minute I'll show you my notebook and then we'll go to the explanation. Yes, so the word of the day is enrapture, or which, as you can see, comes from the Middle English with the prefix in, and then you have rapture on the side. So, prefix the prefix in comes from the French and Old French, and as we know that how French and Old French influenced Middle English. So French and Old French, which means into, and that's why we have enclosure, enrapture, ensure. So we know about that. And this French and Old French, it actually comes from Latin, which means in, and it becomes n when we are talking about languages like French, Spanish, Portuguese, but it remains or remained in Italian only. So in Italian it's not changing, but here it's changing. Now coming to wrapped, we have something called wrapped plus sure. I don't know how aesthetically this is, but we have wrapped and sure. So we have French rapture, coming from medieval Latin raptura, which means seizure. Again, raptura comes from Latin, as I said, raptus, which means carrying off, abduction, rape. So rapt. So, but it's strange how in our modern vocabulary we are so much like we enraptured, but it's strange how there in 17th century it sometimes meant rape and meant carrying away, and the earliest record is obviously if of it being used with women as objects. So there we go, obviously. And the meaning then changed to spiritual around circa 17th century, and the meaning then changed to spiritual ecstasy, which was recorded in by 600 circa 1600. And what's the connection? I mean, how did we come from rapt, abduction, seizure to a kind of ecstasy? I mean, being taken away suddenly, so you're like the spiritual senses, now we have it in. So from that sense, that violent sense, now we are having it in spiritual sense, and passionate feeling in words or music from 16 around 1610s. And Old English first record says that it was used in 1740 by the poet John Dyer. So there it is, there it's your word of the day. So that's your word of the day, and some people are bursting firecrackers outside, so I cannot control that. Sorry about the background noise. So that's your word of the day, and it was pretty interesting for me to find out, like, because I like to know where the words come from, like which language, not just where it comes from which language. So it was very interesting that in rapture comes from the root belongs to French, Old French, then it obviously, and from Old French, even n has Latin roots, like it comes from Latin, and rapture also comes from Latin. And how around 16 17 century this whole thing was recorded. So that's it. That's your word of the day. And now I think it's one of the words that I use quite. I'm enraptured by it. State of being enwrapped, because the word wrapped, and like the way it rolls off your tongue, it's so beautiful. But then yeah, it is beautiful, but then it came from wrapped, so that's also there. But yeah, so that's your word of the day. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it added some kind of information to your life. Good night. Bye bye. Take care.